And on this page, you show what you've done, who you've helped, and how you can help the people visiting the page. If you can do those three things, you can get clients. In this video, I'm going to share with you what I would do if I were to go 2 years back and start my freelance journey in copywriting. I'm going to share with you the things that I would do differently and the things I would still do in the same way that I did when I started my own journey. So if you're at the very beginning of the whole process, this video is exactly for you. The first thing I want to mention is that when you are starting freelance copywriting or freelance content writing, the one biggest, most important thing is that you actually write. Sounds obvious, but there's a lot of things that happen in our head or that happened in my head when I was starting my journey that took the focus away from that. Things like wanting to have a fancy website and actually thinking over and over about it without actually doing anything about it. Things like having a big portfolio and the thought that without that, I wouldn't be able to get clients, when in reality, you get a big portfolio by writing. There's no other way to do it. So writing is the essence of being a freelance copywriter, freelance content writer. So this is the most important thing. I wish I started writing earlier because I would have had more experience and more stuff to show for the time in the game. And this is even regardless of audience, even regardless of clients. There's no one holding you back from opening up a Google Doc and start typing, start learning and typing and documenting. These all add up over time. The second thing is that I would focus maybe more than I did on continuous learning and application. The first part is continuous learning, which is something that I always was interested in. I always believe that there's never the top, you can never know enough, and there's always things and people that you can learn from. At the same time, I sometimes have problems with applying things. I have knowledge in my head, and actually taking that knowledge and applying it into the real world is sometimes difficult. There's a new course that's come out, there's a new video, there's a new blog article that you can consume. Learning how to learn, what are called meta skills, is a very important thing. Unfortunately, it's something that, for me, it wasn't something that I learned in school growing up. So learning about how to take notes in an effective way that you can find them at a later point in time. Something like building a digital second brain. Things like speed reading, where you're reading information quickly, you're retaining it. And speaking of that, there's also different memory things that, like, shout out to Jim Quick for all the lessons I've learned from him, because there's a lot of ways that you can memorize stuff, make it easily accessible. And I feel that learning is as much about understanding how you're going to use the information once you have it. Because if you don't, there's really no point to spending time consuming stuff. The thing is building a support network. And in a way, I feel this is a bit of a cliche, but it's something I wish I started doing earlier. And for me, this means that you're connecting to people that are either further ahead of you in their journey or more or less on the same level, and seeing how you can add value to their business, to their life. So in a way, I like the analogy of you're digging your well before you are thirsty. If you need something from someone and you're going to them for the first time and directly asking for it in that moment, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. It's much better to lead with value, to give someone something that they really need, and then make the ask when you need to, if you need to. And I believe that is the best way to live life in general. So building these types of relationships, building these things where in a way people feel that they owe you something in the future, even if you don't cash it in, so to speak. It's a much more powerful position to be in than the person that really needs something from someone they haven't provided to any value at all. And building these relationships often starts by contacting and connecting to the people in your network. You probably know one person that with the right introduction can connect you to someone that might know someone that is very popular in your niche, that can really provide you business, that can mentor you. So I generally find that there's like 3 to 4 people that if you connect with them and they are incentivized to make that introduction, you could really get what you wanted. But it all starts with building your relationship with the next person and the next etc. And there's the quote by Bradley, or it is widely attributed to him, which states that the more hands you shake, the more money you make. And I really like that. It's something that I never really thought about at the beginning of my freelancing journey. But the more time passes, the more I realize that it's the people that you really know and the people you can depend on that make a big difference in your professional life and even personal life. The next thing is portfolio development. And by this, I don't mean the fancy website that everyone seems hell-bent on having. I think that is important, but it's way down there in the list of priorities. I think a portfolio simply means that you can show someone that you have either worked with someone in their niche and got them the results you promised, or that you can help them with their specific problem. Now, the way you do it doesn't really matter. In the past, I was working with a client and we had a very good relationship. Someone I really enjoyed working with, but at one point, he seemed to move from one thing to another, and on this third project, which was within the same scope of all of the projects but in a different industry, he decided to revamp the whole site. He felt that having stuff flying in, having animations and different colored backgrounds and all that stuff would make a big difference. I disagreed with that. I think there is power in simplicity. I think if things look good, it's an added bonus, but it's not the first thing you should be spending time on. And the thing that is worth your money, especially at the beginning of your freelancing journey. It's super easy to have a page on the internet. You can do it for free. And on this page, you show what you've done, who you've helped, and how you can help the people visiting the page. Essentially, that is all a portfolio needs to show. If you can do those three things, you can get clients. And that is what you need to get started at the beginning. For me, I landed my biggest client by sending them a simple PDF. It listed my experience, it listed the industries I was working in, and it listed the type of content, type of writing I was doing. It went into detail, it had external links to samples that I had created, and that was it. There was no fancy website and nothing of the sort. And in a way, I still think that is the best way to move forward. The next thing is long-term brand, and this is a very interesting point. It's not something that I had thought a lot about until the last few months, and it's something that Hormoz is speaking a lot about these days. And the thing that he said on a podcast I was listening to is that you're taking something people are familiar with and associating your brand with it. The more you do that, the more you don't need the initial thing, because your brand will have replaced that. And the downside of this is that it takes a long time. However, once you have that brand, there are no business problems, is Hormoz's whole thesis, in the sense that if you have business problems now, it's because people don't realize the value you're providing. It's because they feel they can get better solutions from your competitors. If you had the brand, if you took the time, the months, the years to build up that brand, all of these business problems would become irrelevant. And this is something that I never thought about from that perspective. As I go further into my freelancing journey, it's something that I'm thinking more and more about. How can I be on more platforms? How can I align my message? How can I focus on one big project for a very long period of time, rather than go from one thing to another, to another, to another? And in a way, I wish that I had started thinking about this branding stuff at the beginning, because that would have put me in a much further position. At the same time, I'm happy that I discovered this information now and that I'm building towards that brand, the brand of me. So one thing to keep in mind if you're starting your freelance journey is that your brand is important. You need to do things that pay the bills today and this month, but long term, your brand will ultimately be the difference between you as the person that has to keep getting one client after another, or you as the person that clients come to. You have a long line of people wanting to work with you, and you get to pick and choose who you work with. So one thing to keep in mind. And finally is understanding your value. At the end of the day, you're typing words on a screen. If you're a freelance writer or copywriter, but you're providing much more than that. You're providing business owners with a way to make more money, to get more clients, to have better businesses if you can do what you promise to do. If you're writing words that sell products and services, then people will land on these websites, they will read your messaging, they will resonate with it, and they will pay the business owners money. If you're creating content in SEO, then you're getting eyeballs, you're getting people to use search engines to land on specific websites, which ultimately there needs to be a goal to it. So you and your value are directly tied to the business bottom line. Once you understand that, you start valuing your time and your work more. You're not just someone that ChatGPT can replace. You're not just someone that a person that charges a lot less than you can do what you do. Because you understand not just the thing you're working on right now, but also the long-term play. You're understanding how to take someone from not knowing about the business to converting them through a series of steps into someone that becomes a loyal fan of the business. And that is very powerful. So start thinking about the value you're providing. It's something that I did at the beginning of my journey, but it was never clear, and I'm sure it will get clearer over time. And finally, I want to speak about mental health and understanding your limits. For me, I love the hustle. I love the grind. I love working late, waking up early, continuing what I'm working on, getting stuff done, moving on to the next thing, and this keeps going and going and going. At some point, I also realized that there's a diminishing return to the whole thing. If you're staying late days in a row, you will pay for it in the mornings eventually. If you spend hours hunched on your computer trying to get work done, you will get it done, but you might need to go to get sports massages. You need to, take care of your health sooner rather than later. I believe there's always a consequence to what you do, so it's good to put in the hours, and you will need to put in the hours, especially at the beginning, and stay consistent as your business grows. At the same time, also be mindful of your limits. Hustle, grind by all means, but also keep in mind that you will have to, in a way, balance things out. For me, there was a period of about 1 or 2 months where I was suffering with huge shoulder pain and back problems because of the amount of hours I was spending in front of a computer. Now I found ways to get the same work done without having to spend those hours in front of a computer. So going for a walk and using voice dictation, going for a walk and listening to stuff as a break from sitting on a desk, working from different places. So I love going to a coffee shop when it comes to writing. I love going and sitting on my desk when it comes to editing videos. So there are different places that I associate with different things. It's where I find the most focus, and it's also a good way to change things up rather than staying in one place in the same position over and over again. And at the same time, when it comes to mental health, remember why you got into it. You got into it to potentially get time freedom, location freedom, money freedom. So hustle and grind, but also keep those goals in mind. Living your life the way you want it to is important, because if not, what's the whole point of it? So those are my top points for what I would do if I were to start freelancing over from the beginning. What about you? Let me know in the comments below and share your thoughts with me about any of the points that I mentioned or your take on the whole topic. If you want to get started with freelancing, at the bottom of this video in the description there's a link to a checklist that I created that will show you all the steps involved and various sub points to help you take your freelance career off the ground. So check it out, and I'll speak to you soon.